Hello everyone and welcome to the Gunpla Network. I'm the Spicer and today's review of the Master Grade Buster Gundam comes to you courtesy of those fine folks over at Canadian Gundam. Canadian Gundam is your one-stop shop for all things Plamo and Gunpla here in North America. With flat rate shipping to the US and Canada, a private warehouse option, and a vast catalog that's restocked regularly, they're going to have you covered for whatever you need. When you're checking out that vast catalog, don't forget to use the promo code Gunpla Network to save yourself 10% off. I have to say I'm very pleased with the Master Grade Buster Gundam. It's the only SEED frame that I've built so far, but it compares very well to the Master Grade 2.0 Freedom, the Master Grade Strike Freedom, and the Master Grade Infinite Justice. It is exactly what it needs to be. It's not overly engineered. It's not overly designed in terms of stylization or surface detailing. It does have a little bit of nub mark problems here and there, but it's not too bad. And generally speaking, the frame is very stable. So it's exactly what it needs to be for a big gun boy, and it doesn't try to get too fancy with it. In terms of the frame, it's pretty solid. In terms of its actual visual representation, it's an inner frame. It's not nearly as detailed as, say, something like the Infinite Justice's inner frame was, but it does a pretty decent amount of surface detailing on the parts that you could reasonably take off if you wanted to do the half-and-half style look. Taking off parts of the forearms and parts of the legs to show some of that inner detailing is fine. It's not really a big deal for me personally, and that was kind of maybe not a problem for me with the Infinite Justice, but if I'm going to be covering it up, I really have no desire or motivation to take those parts back off. That's just me, though. In terms of its build, though, it is very stable. It's very solid, and once you get the armor around it, it's even more so. All the joints are tight. You have the swiveling, or kind of the moving, independently moving hips up and down in the waist there. You have double jointed elbows and knees, so you can kind of move them all around. And for as bulky as this suit is, it's actually pretty easy to articulate, so you don't really have to worry about striking too many poses. The ankles move a lot, the legs move a lot, the arms kind of move a lot. They have a little bit of a mechanism in the shoulder as well to help with that, but generally speaking, any pose you really want to pull off with the Buster, from the frame's perspective, you can absolutely do. Visually speaking, once you've got it all put together, it's exactly what you would expect. It's a slightly stylized version of the Buster, but it does feel true to form. It's big, it's bulky, it's got big guns. It's exactly what you want from the Buster Gundam. Now, in terms of surface detailing, if you like a busier design, this may feel a little sparse to you, but you do have some good panel lining opportunities pretty much all over the place. I will say, though, that the Dark Hunter Green does not like to show any kind of panel lining you do. So keep that in mind. Your black, your gray, and your brown panel lining markers may not do a whole lot of work there from a distance. You'll be able to see it once you get closer, but it's not really going to be something on your shelf from a distance you're going to see that much. It does show up really well on the cream color as well as the orange, so you can at least accentuate that a little bit. In terms of parts that show through from the inner frame or just parts added to look like the inner frame, you have a decent selection up on the shoulders with some mechanical bits showing under. You have the vents on the chest being kind of covered up. You of course have the arms that connect to the cannons. They are fully detailed as well, so they're not just blank pieces of plastic. Thank you, Bandai, for taking that consideration. You have some showing through on the orange of the side skirts and the back thruster. You have two weird little cameras that don't have stickers showing through on the front skirt, but they are there. It's clear plastic, so if you want to paint it, you can. If you want to maybe try to cut some foil stickers and fit it, you, I guess, can do that too. You also have some parts showing through down on the legs, but not nearly as much as up on the upper portion of the kit. In terms of the color choices, everything feels exactly the way it needs to. The cream color is a little creamier or more of a tan color than it is a white, so it will stand out against the rest of the GAT suits, as they'll kind of have their slightly different, unique colorations. You also will have the orange being a very subtle orange, and orange isn't the most subtle color, of course, but it does pop against the really dark hunter green. It's a nice contrast. It is a little stylized, but it's not overly so. It does feel bulky where it needs to, and most of the stylization I feel like comes in the torso, but since it's got those two big connector parts for the cannons, it doesn't feel all that small. I will say that while I'm not the best at cleaning up nubs, the dark hunter green plastic is probably the worst I've had in recent memory in terms of nubs. The dark green likes to stress very easily, so be a little bit careful when you're doing that. I will say though that the gate placement is actually really good on this kit. As you can see, there's really not a lot of nubbing on the green marks you can see because most of it's hidden away. You will, however, see it on the feet, so kind of keep that in mind as you move forward with either purchasing or building this kit. In terms of its posability, you have a pretty good range of motion. Everything's exactly where it needs to be and works the way it needs to, whether it's the arms that hold the cannons themselves, the mobile suit's arms, or the legs. The feet are large enough to hold most any pose, and you can move the legs in a variety of ways to make it feel like it's firing a big giant gun. The cannons move around on those arms, and while it is a little awkward, once you get used to moving them, they're not that bad. There are several points of articulation. Of course, the entire arm swings forward. There's a peg there, so the rest of the arm can rotate there. There are two different hinge systems on the end of that next part that leads into the main connector to the gun, which also has a peg and a ball joint. So these will move pretty much anywhere you want them. You just have to be a little patient and be a little careful. I've not had any concerns on losing parts or breaking parts, but I would say if you're probably going to have something happen, it's here, because this is really where most of the movement is going to happen, and that's kind of the smallest amount of plastic for that movement. Regardless, like I said, I haven't had any issues, so take that as you will. But the cannons move forward independently. They're great. They connect well. The arms move. I'd say that's probably the most difficult thing I've had to do is get the arms in place, but it's really not that hard, honestly. You just have to get the cannons where you want them first and make those adjustments. You, of course, have the shoulder packs on the shoulders. Those look fine, a little surface detailing, but when you're using the cannons, it's a little hard to use them at the same time, especially when they're in the big old connected gun mode. Now, you can also get this down on the ground. It does come with a stand adapter, but for the Buster, I feel like it's more adequate to put it on the ground because it's a big old gun weapons platform. It's kind of what it's designed to do, I suppose. But you can get it kneeling down, which is very surprising for as bulky as it is. It does help that those guns can also serve as an extra point of contact with the ground. Once you get the guns connected, it is really big and really impressive looking. I know I said with the Calamity, the full mechanics Calamity, it's hard to do a dynamic pose with like an artillery piece type mobile suit, but this is probably about as good as it gets because that big old cannon is very eye-catching and very impressive looking. It's not too hard to connect, and moving the arms around to grab the handles is actually a little bit easier in this form than you would think. It still takes a little work and you have to be a little patient, but generally speaking, it's actually not too bad. The arms that hold the guns move around in a really easy way for this as well, so it's really just getting the head looking in the right way and getting the hands in a fairly believable position to hold the cannons. This is probably one of the most visually impressive things this kit has to offer, because it doesn't have a lot to offer, but that's the Buster. It's exactly what it needs to do. It has two big guns and that's it. There's not a lot of accessories, so you're at least getting a lot out of the few accessories you have. Now you can also do the big cannon version versus the big sniper version. This looks good as well. It's not too hard to do. Move around. The shoulders do kind of get in the way of looking down the scope a little bit, and you can bring this a little bit more forward facing. But the more you kind of get out of the range of motion of the shoulders, the harder it is to get those handles on. So kind of keep that in mind. Like I said, it's something you can do. You just have to take the time to move it in the right position. So this is not something you're going to throw a quick pose on. and it look necessarily great. But when you take a little bit of time, just maybe 5-10 minutes, find a pose you really like, it's most likely going to pay off because these big cannons are very eye-catching. This is something that's going to have a lot of shelf presence for being a weird ground artillery piece mobile suit. Now, in terms of comparisons, of course, as I said, the Full Mechanics Calamity is kind of the successor to this, so it's only fair I compare them. I would say the Full Mechanics is going to be probably a little bit more eye-catching on your shelf because of its color and size, but once you get the Buster in that big cannon configuration, it's really going to probably equal out, especially if you have them a little bit further back on your shelf. Up against the Strike Freedom 2.0, it looks really good. You can see the difference in the kind of cream tan color versus the white there on the Freedom. So it kind of gives you a better idea of what the coloration looks like and how screen accurate it is. You also here have it with the EX Archangel. Not really a comparison that makes a lot of sense, but the Buster helps defend the Archangel, and well, I kind of just wanted an excuse to throw this on here. I do have to say it's looking a little rough, so I feel a little bad for it. I need to go back through, clean it up a little bit, and reapply some paint here and there because it's looking a little rough. And lastly, I would say my overall thoughts here for the Buster. Being the first X SEED frame I've built, I have to say I'm very impressed. It was a fairly straightforward but fun build. It has a good amount of surface detailing, but not too much. It's a little challenging to pose in some areas, but it's really not that bad, and it's probably the best form of the Buster's cannons I've seen on anything so far, which would kind of make sense. The Master Grade's probably going to be the most engineered and well thought out, especially in its size. Overall, the theme of this review, if you will, is it's exactly what it needs to be. The designers knew that this was not going to be the Freedom. This is not the big flashy thing you're going to put on your shelf, but they wanted to do right by fans, I feel like, and they made this the Buster. This is as quintessential Buster Gundam as you can get. It's big in the right places, it's bulky in the right places, it's stable, it's solid as a brick. You've got those cannons that look really impressive, and I'm sure someone out there putting a little time in and detailing them will really make them pop a lot more than they already do. But once you throw them in those big cannon configurations, the connected ones, they are really hard not to look at. Like they are so eye-catching that on your shelf, it maybe not compete with like a full burst Strike Freedom or something, but it will definitely stand its own ground against the rest of the SEED line. Well, there are some downsides in terms of like taking a little bit more time to pose it. I would say if you just want a solid, very straightforward, kind of basic Master Grade, this is a great one to do. The only people I would really say to avoid this kit would be like people just really hate SEED, but everyone else, whether you're a SEED fan or a Master Grade fan, or you just want something that's kind of a little bit of a relaxing, but a little bit more intricate build, this is a good one to go with. It's not overly engineered, but it's also not a high grade. It's a really good in-between in terms of challenging but relaxing. But that's kind of just how I feel about it. If you've built it, let me know in the comments down below. Do you like it? Do you have concerns? Is it just a really solid, good for what it is Master Grade? Or does it fall short in a couple other places after you've had it on your shelf for a while? Personally, I think this is probably going to stay pretty solid for a while, but who knows? It's a new kit for me, so we'll see. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below as well. I will do my absolute best to answer them. And as always, friends, I've been the Spicer here for the Gunpla Network. Please stay safe and keep on building.